Our lesson this morning continues in 2 Timothy chapter 4, and it starts in verse number 8. Paul is talking about the upcoming end of his life. He had just been talking about, I fought the good fight, I finished the course, I have kept the faith. Then he says, finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. You know, so often we read that verse, we hear that verse, and it's preached, it's discussed, but there are some things about it that I think we sometimes kind of let slide. And I'd like to share a few thoughts with you on that. When he says, there is laid up for me, there is laid up for me, what does that mean, laid up? Well, parents do what for their children? They lay up for their children, don't you? That's why we have college funds, and that's why we have gift accounts and all that sort of stuff. We kind of plan ahead, and we have it awaiting for you. Everybody understand that? Jesus said, I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and do what? Receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. My Lord has already gone and laid this place up in heaven for us. It's there for us. And Paul knew that. I am going to heaven. Okay, so there is laid up for me. Now, the crown of righteousness. Did you know, I would venture to say, many people think in terms of a literal crown like you would put on a king, or laurel like you would put around the head of an athlete. Isn't that the way a lot of times we kind of picture there, laid up for me, a crown, and they're going to put that crown on me, and we talk about, will there be any stars in my crown? That's the way people think. I don't think that's what he means. When you are Christian and you are engaged, your life is committed to glorifying God by the things you think, say, and do. Your life is full of righteousness. Doesn't mean you don't ever commit sin. It just means that I am trying to deal with that, and I'm trying to live a life of righteousness. The big joy of righteousness, the results of righteousness, is what? The reward that comes from it. Not because of it. God does not let us say, well, I've done so much, therefore you owe me. God doesn't owe us anything, does he? But the crown, the big top side of righteousness. And then the crown, doesn't it go on top? The top side of righteousness, the top benefit of being righteous is not only what you feel. It's not only what you are able to impart to other people, but that top echelon of righteousness, that top crown of righteousness is going to heaven. That's going to heaven. And so he is saying God has prepared heaven, and that's going to be the result. That's the final glory I get from all of the righteousness that I have tried to teach, I have tried to live and express while I was here on earth. Yes, it is. It's a reward. But it's not a literal crown. And it is that result. It is that result. And do you really want to go around heaven and everybody's got on a crown and you have to sit there kind of like football helmets? Have you ever noticed how football helmets, all the guys are lined up on the sideline? You know, they all look funny, don't they? They all look the same. They got them big old helmets, but they got all those little footballs and everything all over their helmets. And so you look at, he's got a whole bunch of them. So what? He's played in a whole lot of games, made a whole lot of important tackles and some touchdowns, and he's been rewarded a whole lot of times for his work. And you look down here, and this one, look, he's got one. You go, bless your heart, honey. Isn't that the sort of the way we are when we're looking at them from behind? Yeah, it is. Okay, so are we going to walk around heaven and everybody's going to have on a crown? You have to count how many stars are in their crown before you know what kind of Christian they were? No. How do we know that's not the way it's going to be? Jesus said, there was some fella had a vineyard. He said, go work in my vineyard, and I'll pay you how much? A penny. He goes out the 11th hour, and he saw some idle people. He said, well, go work in my vineyard. I'll pay you a penny. Okay, when he came around to pay them all, the people who went in at the 11th hour got how much? A penny. People who worked all day got, and they got all upset about it. You mean we don't get extra? He said, I told you I'd pay you a penny for working all day. Did you work all day? Yeah, here's your penny. Okay? The other guy said, I told you you go in there and you work an hour, I'll give you a penny. Did you get your penny? Yeah, did you work out? Yeah, okay. Did you know there's no room for jealousy in heaven? Because there's no sin there, right? There's no jealousy. And is there competition in heaven? No. We're all children of God, and we're going to be there together. And because of that, the person who was converted to Christ late in life, their life, regardless of the age, but late in their life, and they died, maybe still a baby in Jesus, do they get to go to heaven? Yes. And those of us who have been around a long time, and we've worked and labored for our God, and we have given everything we know to do to glorify Him, we go to heaven just like them. And if somebody says, that's not fair, you're thinking worldly. Because it is fair. How many of us are guaranteed that we're going to get from here home without dying? Not a single one of us. Not a single one of us. How many, I know you may not even be able to finish a sermon. We understand that. We understand that. And so we have to live every day as if it was the last day. And I think we say those words. I think sometimes some folks don't think about them. But you have to be ready. You have to be ready to meet our Lord at all times. So he said, I'm going to get that crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge. Now, why would he stick that in there? Because where is Paul? He's in prison. Where is Paul? He's about to be beheaded like a criminal, right? But is Paul righteous? And God is going to know the difference between the judgments of God and the judgments of man. Folks, you can be put down, criticized, stomped on, spit on this earth by people who think they know everything. But I'm sorry, it's God's opinion that really counts in your life. Man can put you up as the greatest hero that's ever walked on the face of the earth, the greatest Christian, that deserves everything else, and you're going to become a big shot up in heaven. It doesn't mean anything whose opinion counts. It's God's opinion. It's God's opinion. So it's not ours. In fact, Paul said it's a very small thing that you should judge me. I think this is 2 Corinthians 4. It's a small thing that I should be judged of you or men's judgment. He said, I don't even judge myself. He that judges me is the Lord. See the 1st or 2 Corinthians chapter 4. That's the way we have to think of it. That's the way we have to think of it. Okay. He says that the righteous judge will give to me on that day. On that day. Is he talking about the day of his death? Is he talking about the day of judgment? Is he talking about what? I think he's talking about Judgment Day. Now, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. There are some folks who feel like you get all this the moment you die. And as I study the Scripture, and there are a lot of good Bible scholars that believe that, but at the same time, there are several verses that just, I don't think necessarily fit that very well. Where was Lazarus in that picture, the rich man and Lazarus? He was asleep, wasn't he? He was asleep in that. And when Paul said that don't weep for us that we're going to be asleep in Jesus. He talks about those who have fallen asleep in Jesus. I'm sorry, you're not going to go to sleep in Jesus and be asleep in Jesus and at the same time walk the pearly gates unless you're a sleepwalker. Okay? There are other verses that talk about on the morning of the resurrection. Well, if you're already resurrected as far as going to heaven and in heaven, is there a need for a resurrection? No. And he says those who have done good will be the resurrection of life. Those who've done bad, resurrection of damnation. I think when we die, I think we go to sleep. I think we go to sleep in Jesus. And I think on the morning of the resurrection, we're going to wake up. Now, when you go to sleep, how soon is it until morning? If you're getting a good night's sleep. You just know sooner to go to sleep and you're waking up, right? Time went by so fast. I think that's where it's going to be. Most of you have gone under surgery. And when you go to surgery and you say, okay, then all of a sudden, wake up. You were in there 4 hours. You didn't feel it. So I think I think it's going to be a sleep. So I think it's referring to the judgment day. Now, are we getting cheated by having to sleep until the judgment day? Not at all. And if everybody says, well, yeah, but the longer you wait, they're going to have all the big fancy mansions up in heaven already taken up by the time I get there. Oh, come on, give me a break. The Lord don't work that way. So, yeah, I think he's talking about the day of judgment. And not to me only. I sure don't, and it does not have to have a backup camera either. Be there. Absolutely. As he said, not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Now, let's look at that phraseology. And not to me only. I'm not the only one going. Paul was a hard worker for the Lord. Paul did a whole lot. He sacrificed a lot. He gave a lot. He went through a whole lot. He taught a lot. He converted a lot. And do I have to measure up to Paul to get to go to heaven? Well, if that's the case, then all the folks he converted didn't measure up, right? He's the only one going to get there. He's, It's not to me only, but to all, to everyone who have, look at that, loved his appearing. Okay, here we go again. Maybe we're too analytical. Loved his appearing. Is that his appearance on earth, or is that his appearance eternally? Well, okay. When you think about Christ came and he lived and he set the example, proved his sonship, and he suffered, died, buried, was resurrected, right? And that's where we place our faith and our trust and our obedience in Jesus Christ, right? Okay, are we loving his appearance? Yeah, we're loving his appearing here on earth, right? That he came down to be with us to prove that he is the Son of God. So we love his appearing. Okay, on the day of judgment, when he comes back again, in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trump, are we going to love his appearing? Sure, I've been asleep long enough. Okay, sure, I have suffered here long enough, and we're going to meet him in the air and be happy. It goes either way. But we had better love it. Better love it. There are some folks, when he comes again, they're not going to love it. They're going to quake and run. It's too late. It's too late. We've got to get everything straightened out with us and God. We've got to get everything in order while we still have life in this body where I can make decisions and say, this is what I believe, this is where I stand, this is what I'm going to do, and Father, I love doing what you want me to do, following your expectations. I have to do that. I cannot wait until I die and then say, well, I'm sorry for whatever I did, and I knew I should have, I just forgot to do it. That's okay, isn't it? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So he says, that he's going to give to me at that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing.